Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're embarking on, honestly, one of the most incredible biological journeys imaginable. We're going to trace the epic of life itself, literally from its microscopic beginnings all the way to the creation of a human being. And we'll be focusing entirely on the absolute masterpiece that is the female reproductive system. It's this amazing story of perfect timing, intricate cellular dances, and just remarkable biological engineering. So, let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. Female anatomy and organs, 2. Oogenesis and the menstrual cycle, 3. Fertilization and implantation, 4. Embryonic development and the placenta, and finally, 5. Parturition and lactation. Starting things off with Part 1, Female anatomy and organs. All right, so here are the key players in the pelvic region. First up, we have the ovaries. These are the primary organs that produce the female gametes, the ova, as well as some absolutely crucial steroid hormones. Then there are the oviducts, or as you probably know them, the fallopian tubes, which serve as the actual site where fertilization happens. Next is the uterus, that incredibly resilient, inverted pear-shaped womb made up of 3 distinct layers. Leading out from there is the cervix and the vagina, which together form the birth canal. And what's truly fascinating here is how all these parts, along with the external genitalia and the mammary glands, are perfectly integrated to support the whole shebang, from ovulation to pregnancy, right through to childcare. So, the crucial point we need to focus on is the innermost layer of that uterus, the endometrium. This is an inner glandular layer that undergoes these constant cyclical changes. Think of it like a meticulously prepared, highly nourished VIP room that the body gets ready each and every month to host a potential pregnancy. If a fertilized egg actually arrives, this is exactly where it must securely implant. That perfectly sets up Part 2, oogenesis and the menstrual cycle. Now, there is a massive, and I mean massive, difference in human biology here. If we compare sperm production, spermatogenesis, to egg production, oogenesis, the contrast is just stark. Spermatogenesis begins at puberty and can continue well into old age. But oogenesis, it actually begins while a female is still developing as an embryo inside her own mother's womb. Basically, a female is born with a couple of million gamete mother cells, and no more are ever added after birth. This finite supply is eventually depleted around the age of 50, which brings on menopause. It's a completely different biological timeline. Let's walk through how this finite supply of eggs is actually managed in an average 28 to 29-day loop. It kicks off with the menstrual phase, lasting about 3 to 5 days, where the unneeded endometrial lining is shed. Then comes the follicular phase, where a new follicle matures and the endometrium starts regenerating all over again. Right in the middle, around day 14, we hit the ovulatory phase, and that's where the ovum is successfully released. Finally, the luteal phase steps in to prepare the uterus, just in case that ovum gets fertilized. It's this continuous, beautifully orchestrated cycle of preparation. But this brings us to a super fascinating question. What exactly orchestrates this complex monthly preparation of the uterus and the precise timing of the ovum's release? I mean, how does the body know when to do what? Well, the biological directors behind this entire production are hormones. LH and FSH from the pituitary gland stimulate the follicle's growth, and a rapid, massive surge in LH mid-cycle is exactly what triggers ovulation. Meanwhile, the growing follicles themselves are secreting estrogens. And after ovulation, the remaining parts of the follicle transform into the corpus luteum, which pumps out large amounts of progesterone. Progesterone is the absolute game changer here. It's the crucial hormone that maintains that endometrial lining, keeping the uterus perfectly ready for a potential implantation. Moving the timeline forward to Part 3, fertilization and implantation. During insemination, you've got millions of highly motile sperms rapidly swimming toward one single ovum in the ampullary region. So we really have to ask, with millions of sperms competing for the same prize, what prevents multiple sperms from fertilizing that one ovum and causing total biological chaos? The answer is this brilliant microscopic defense mechanism. When a sperm first comes into contact with the zona pellucida, which is the thick outer layer of the ovum, it induces instant biochemical changes in the membrane. This effectively creates an impenetrable shield, instantly blocking the entry of any additional sperms. It guarantees that only one single sperm can fuse with the ovum. And right at that exact moment of fusion, a major biological trait is established. The sex of the baby is strictly determined by the chromosomal pattern of the father's sperm, not the mother's ovum. The mother's ovum always carries an X chromosome, 100% of the time. The father's sperm, however, can carry either an X or a Y chromosome. So biologically speaking, the genetic contribution from the sperm is what ultimately dictates the biological sex of the resulting zygote. Let's see how this builds, because from a single-celled fertilized zygote, the transformation is incredibly rapid. As it travels down the oviduct toward the uterus, it undergoes rapid mitotic divisions called cleavage. It splits into 2, 4, 8, and 16 cells called blastomeres, forming a solid ball called a morula. This morula continues to divide and transforms into a hollow structure called a blastocyst. Finally, this blastocyst embeds itself securely into that perfectly prepared endometrium we talked about earlier. This is implantation, folks, and it marks the official start of pregnancy. And this brilliantly illustrates the result. That meticulously prepared endometrial lining has now become the permanent nesting ground, securely embedding the human fetus where it will spend the next 9 months growing and developing. Which brings us to the building phase in Part 4, embryonic development and the placenta. To manage this rapid growth, the body builds a brand new, temporary structural and functional unit, the placenta. The placenta is literally the ultimate life support bridge, supplying oxygen and nutrients to the embryo while removing waste. But it's also a powerful endocrine center in its own right. It produces hormones like human chorionic gonadotropin, human placenta lactogen, and later on, relaxin from the ovary. Now, these specific hormones are exclusively produced during pregnancy. They are the essential chemical signals that support fetal growth and induce the massive metabolic changes required in the mother's body. And honestly, just look at the timeline of that embryonic growth. It is awe-inspiring to say the least. By the end of just the first month, the tiny heart is already formed and beating. By month 2, limbs and digits are developing. By 12 weeks, so the end of the first trimester, most of the major organ systems are fundamentally in place. At 5 months, the mother can feel the first movements, and hair actually begins to appear on the head. And by 24 weeks, the body is covered in fine hair, and eyelids and eyelashes are completely formed. In just a matter of weeks, we go from a microscopic cluster of cells to a remarkably detailed human form. It's wild. Finally, we reach the grand finale of our timeline, Part 5, parturition and lactation. Scientifically speaking, childbirth is called parturition, and it's important to understand that it is a highly complex neuroendocrine process. Actually, scratch that. It's not just a mechanical event of pushing, it is a meticulously coordinated chemical and nervous system sequence, triggered initially by something called the fetal ejection reflex. Let's break down how this intense stimulatory reflex actually works in practice. When the fetus is fully developed, it, along with the placenta, sends signals that cause mild uterine contractions. These mild contractions signal the maternal pituitary gland to release a hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin then acts directly on the uterine muscle, causing much stronger contractions. Those stronger contractions in turn stimulate the release of even more oxytocin. It is a perfect, self-amplifying cause and effect loop that results in stronger and stronger contractions until the baby, and subsequently the placenta, are completely expelled through the birth canal. But the mother's biological support system doesn't just switch off at birth. The mammary glands have been undergoing differentiation throughout the entire pregnancy. Towards the very end of gestation, they begin producing milk. This process, called lactation, ensures that the female body seamlessly transitions from supporting the child inside the womb through the placenta to feeding and nourishing the newborn outside the womb during its critical initial months of growth. So from a single, microscopic cell to a fully developed infant in just 9 months. When you step back and look at the whole picture, the precisely timed hormones, the microscopic cellular blocks, the formation of temporary life support organs like the placenta, and those powerful feedback loops of birth, you really have to ask yourself, what other system in biology orchestrates such a flawless, interconnected masterpiece? It truly is the epic of life. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer to unpack this incredible source material. I hope this gave you a newfound appreciation for the structured brilliance of human biology. Catch you next time and keep exploring.